Welcome to episode 312 of the show. If you listened to yesterday's episode, then you know why we have animal noises going on in the background and that funky music. If you didn't listen to yesterday's episode, then when you're done with this, just listen to yesterday's episode and you'll understand where those noises are coming from and why those noises are going to be a part of this podcast recording and also for the other podcast recordings for the rest of the week. But don't worry, as soon as we hit Monday next week, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled quiet podcast recordings. So, with that out of the way, let's get straight into the meat of today's show. Now, in the beginning, when we're trying to drum up business, we're going to have to sell a loan, and that's understandable because initially we're the chief promoter. So you decide you're going to be a wedding photographer or a wedding planner or a decor person, and it's going to be your name out there on the Instagram handle or on the website or whatever it is. Even if it's not your name, responsibility for getting the bills in is going to be your own. It's going to be your primary responsibility. So you could be a decor person and you have a whole team of people behind you. You have a store manager, you have an inventory manager, you have carpenters and people that build the sets and take them down and all of that. But in the beginning, selling is going to be your own primary responsibility. And it's something that we have to recognize and welcome in the beginning, that you're going to be the chief revenue officer and not just the chief executive officer. Anyway, so be that as it may, even though we are going to be the chief money person, the chief rainmaker in the beginning, it doesn't necessarily have to be so over the course of our businesses. So that's the reason why, you'll find that the more established firms, let's say like in Lagos for instance, I'm not going to call any names, but eventually they do get to the point where the CEO stops being the forward-facing person of the company, at least when it comes to revenue. You have other people who are authorized and then properly trained to go out and get that business as well. But it's a good idea to embrace the early days when we do all of the selling, because in the early days, when we're the ones hitting the streets talking to clients, it helps us to get a very good idea of who our target audience is. So don't discount those early days of talking to brides and grooms, even though it seems it's a hassle. It is through that you're going to get a sense of who is my ideal bride, who is my ideal groom, or who is my ideal customer. If you happen to be in another industry, but you are listening to the podcast today. So doing all that groundwork is going to give you a sense of who the ideal customer is, and also the best way that you ought to go about approaching that customer, whether it's online or in person. And it's all that intel that you get in the early days that is going to inform how you train your staff or your sales manager or your inventory manager or your general manager or whoever it is that you're going to delegate your selling function to. And that is why this is invaluable, because if you decide to just get a team and throw them out there and say, go ye and bring in revenue, you could be creating some problems for yourself in the future that I've spoken about a lot on the podcast. One of them being the brand confusion, because you could have a very posh and sophisticated way of presenting the company, but since you haven't given your folks any training and they're going out there into the marketplace and trying to rough it out and create things on the spot, they could be interacting with customers in ways that you find to be less than ideal. So there's the brand confusion, and then apart from that, you're also not going to be able to scale your business in a predictable way, because the way Kunle is talking to clients is different from the way that Kemi is talking to clients, and it's different from the way that Kelechukwu is talking to clients. And it's good to make sure that everybody is running off of the same framework, off of the same playbook. And that is going to be when you'll be able to scale, because you can make changes to say, okay, this is the most optimum way to go about it. So Kemi change this, Kunle change this, and Kelechukwu get on board by doing this. So that is why we should embrace the fact that in these early days, we're going to be the ones who are the chief sales officer, the chief revenue officer, and the chief promoters of the business, because it's given us all the intelligence that we need. When I say intelligence, I mean what would I say? all the client data and all the information that we need to grow the business for the future. And yes, eventually we will have to take this selling beyond us. We will have to get a team, because if we limit it to the amount of revenue that we can bring in, then we are limiting our prospects for growth. So on the door or on the Instagram handle, it might say Kemi Wedding Planners LLC, or Afonja Wedding Photographer, Lagos or Ibadan, or whatever. But the thing is, if we do not empower people or train people to sell on our behalf and get business systems up and running, then we'll always be limited to what it is that you can bring in as Kemi, or what you can bring in as Afonja. So, embrace the hassle of selling alone in the early days, but realize that eventually you're going to have to build a team around yourself. And so that's it, pretty much what I have to discuss today. So thank you very much for listening to the show. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I am Abuja-based sales consultant and event media professional Tavishima Ayede. I'll catch you guys at the next recording. And don't forget, any questions, comments, or queries, you can hit me up using the voice messaging functions on the app. On Anchor, you just look for that text bubble, hit it, and you'll be able to send me a voice note. And you can do the same using the community feature if you're listening on Spotify. But regardless of whatever podcast catcher you're using, please subscribe and also share, so that people can get the good news that there is a business podcast out there dedicated, let's say maybe 300 days of the year, to bringing you premium business content about how you can grow your business using the discipline of personal selling, which is pretty much the art of just learning how to go out there and using conversations, whether in face-to-face or email or SMS, just simple conversational techniques about how you're going to grow your business forward, and doing that one sale at a time. So thank you very much for listening to the show. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.